We meet again.
Jawad here, Jawad.
Hi, Aloysius.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I was parachuted in at the last minute. I got very little background of what's happening, but I will take your lead, okay?
So your morning session is good. I was very happy with the explanation of facilitative and evaluative which you gave. You know, there was always a confusion in my mind.
Right.
So, shall we start?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Very good evening to all the participants in this special program. In the series of programs being conducted by High Court of Jammu and Kashmir for the law interns, this program goes with the title Career in Mediation. So in this program, we have a panel of trained mediators and mediation trainers. So they would be talking on what is the scope of mediation as a career option for law graduates. So in the panel, we have Mr. J Singh, Ms. Laila Ollapally, Mr. J Jawad, and Mr. Jonathan. And as special invitee, at the request of Honorable the Chief Justice, we have on this panel Mr. Aloysius from Singapore. So welcome all the panelists. It's a real privilege for all of us to have the illustrious panel talking to all of us on the nuances of mediation, especially mediation as a career. This program would be moderated by Mr. J.P. Singh. I'll give you a brief introduction of Mr. Singh, though his introduction is beyond the scope of 1.5 hours of program. He has achieved so much while doing this mediation and mediation training. Mr. J.P. Singh is well-known civil, commercial, and arbitration lawyer and an accomplished mediator. He has been the founder, organizing secretary of Samadhan, the Delhi High Court Mediation and Conciliation Center. He received his basic training in mediation in India and his advanced training at various institutes, university in USA. He has trained several high courts and district courts in the country and also the judicial officers at Delhi Judicial Academy, Jharkhand Judicial Academy, and J&K Judicial Academy. We had few programs, and in mediation committee also conducted few programs with Mr. J.P. Singh as one of the panelists. He is also a member of panel constituted by the Supreme Court for recommending legislation on mediation. He has been appointed mediator in several important and large commercial disputes by the Supreme Court and the Delhi High Court. Apart from being a highly successful lawyer in court, he is a golf champion of great repute and has adorned several golf courses of the country with his talent. So it would be our privilege to invite Mr. Singh to Srinagar golf courses also, known to be finest golf courses in the country. So this is the brief introduction which I could give, but Mr. Singh has great achievements. And for us, it's always a privilege because he has conducted many programs with mediation committee. And from tomorrow onwards, we are having a second phase of mediation training for Leh and Kargil. So welcome, Mr. Singh. So now I would request Mr. Singh to start deliberations in the program and also to introduce our illustrious panel. Yes, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rajeev Gupta. You have been very lavish, as usual, with your praises. I don't know. I mean, I always say I do not know how much I deserve. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Let me introduce today's speakers to you. Madam Laila Ollapally is a case litigator who left a lucrative practice for over 3 decades to become a full-time mediator. She is founder of the Center of Advanced Mediation Practice, commonly known as CAMP, located at Bangalore. Mr. A.J. Jawad started his practice in law in 1988 from Chennai. He is an accredited mediator and trainer and has conducted several mediation training programs in different states in India under the aegis of National Mediation and Conciliation Plan of the Honorable Supreme Court of India. Mr. Jonathan Rodrigues holds a bachelor degree in law from Goa University. He pursued his LLM in mediation and conflict resolution at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow, Scotland. He founded the PACT, an organization dedicated to mediation awareness and education. Mr. Aloysius Go, our special invitee, he needs no introduction. He is the CEO and founder of Sage Mediation, senior faculty at the Singapore Mediation Center, and founding chairman of the Peacemakers Conference. He's a very spiritual person, but for the fact that he took to mediation, he could have been a monk. And if you go on Google, it will tell you that he's a fitness freak. I mean, you can see that he doesn't look his age at all. I have been closely associated with our speakers for the past several years. They are hands-on mediation as well as mediators as well as trainers in the field of mediation, having trained students, lawyers, judges, corporates, and people from all walks of life. I wish to take full advantage of the galaxy of stars present here on the topic of this webinar. First of all, let me tell you a little about mediation. Mediation is emerging as a preferable means to manage differences in our relationships, families, workplaces, schools, communities, and institutions. In a broad sense, mediation encompasses a form of communication where barriers are broken down and bridges are built. The mediator is a neutral third party who focuses discussions and helps shape the language used with a goal of coming up with mutually acceptable solution. This process opens communication channels and creates an atmosphere for problem solving. Mediation extends the negotiation process by asking the third party neutral to monitor the process while allowing the disputants responsibility for their own resolution to the conflict. When two parties engage in a discussion attempting to reach an agreement of their dispute, they are using the process of negotiation. When they cannot resolve the dispute on their own, they need the assistance of a third party, the mediator. Conflict is inevitable in our lives. When conflict resolution is seen as a contest, it results in ineffective, frustrating, and unproductive outcomes. In mediation, the two parties are not in a contest. The goal is to find the appropriate resolution to the conflict, one that satisfies both the parties. Now, to act as a mediator, you have to undergo training. Like any other skill you seek to acquire in life, you need to learn specialized negotiation and communication skills besides learning the mediation process. Mediation has been effectively practiced in India since 2005 after the judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court in Salem Advocate Bar Association's case upholding amendment to Section 89 of the Civil Procedure Code and directing every High Court to set up court-annexed mediation centers. Now, several statutes have introduced the concept and use of mediation as a process of alternative dispute resolution to resolve disputes like consumer disputes, commercial disputes, matrimonial and family disputes, and the like. Now, with this in mind, may I begin with you, Madam Laila Ollapally. You have often said that knowledge of mediation skills is an asset for a lawyer. Now, how does a mediator's mindset make you a better lawyer and a better professional?
Thank you, JP, and I'm very grateful to all of you and to being here with all of you and to participate in this wonderful program. So thanks to the team at Jammu and Kashmir. I wish I was there. Such a beautiful place. So JP, to answer your question, a mediator is a person who stands between two or more opponents or opposing views without the power to take a decision. So there is a Montenegrin proverb which says, the peacemaker faces 2/3 of the blows. 2/3 of the blows are taken by the peacemaker. So which means a mediator has to have grit and patience and a tough skin, no ego, etc. So today we're here not exactly to talk about the mediator. I mean, in this answering your question, let's come back to mediator's mindset and why it's important. I want to, I go back to a case that I mediated some years ago. This was referred by the Supreme Court. The parties come in for mediation saying, we've been in court for 25 years. We've reached the Supreme Court. We don't need any mediation. The outcome is close at hand. But I tell them, anyway, you've come. So let's hear what you have to say. I persuaded them. They came in. Couple of hours through the mediation, we realized that the parties were actually seeking a suit for declaration of title. 25 years ago, what was filed was an eviction suit. So I tell them, you have another 25 years. That's what persuaded them to come to a resolution. What happened? Why did the lawyers file an eviction suit when the parties wanted a suit for declaration? I go back to our training in law schools. Our training in law schools is about speaking, influencing, communicating to influence, not to listen. Not to listen in a manner that you hear. To understand what is the message beneath the words, the non-verbals. That is not our training. So what mediation teaches is to help you listen hearingly, to have empathy, to have compassion. And having introduced mediation, I'm already seeing that the mindsets of the lawyers are also changing. Recently, I was mediating a matrimonial dispute, custody of the child. I noticed that both the lawyers were actually looking at best interest of the child. The adversarial slowly giving way to what is the best interest. And today I was listening to the TV. We've all been glued to the American election, and what really won was unifying forces. not the divisive. Concepts like soul of the nation. So for lawyers, the soul of justice is better addressed with a mediator's mindset as well, an awareness of a mediator's mindset. But not only for lawyers. This concept today is applicable to all fields is a way of life. Today, decision making has gone through a revolution. It's no more the hierarchical pyramid kind of structure for decision making. It's not just one person at the top of the pyramid who takes a decision. It is flattened. It's about teams, groups, collaboration, creating value, not just claiming value. And as JP said, building bridges. This is what negotiation today is all about. And this is what we learn in our mediation classes. How do you collaborate? How do you create value? How do you build bridges? So today I'm saying this is no more just required in the legal arena. It is a way of life. Children in schools, colleges, in different workforces, organized team building, that is leadership, building leadership through mediation, being able to handle differences. So a mediator's mindset is applicable not only to lawyers, but to professionals and to every member of the society.
Thank you, Laila. I mean, you probably said, yes, we need to have a change in mindset from winning a contest to problem solvers. We need to be collaborative. And you also seem to suggest we should catch them young, catch them early. Mr. Jawad, now turning to you. You have closely worked with students and even coached them in several moot mediation competitions. And they have won laurels under your tutelage. Now, what do you think is the problem with the legal education at present? And how do you think it is evolving or should evolve from a futuristic perspective?
Thank you, JP. I will have to put off my video because I'm told that my audio is not coming clearly when the video is on. So, JP, I think Laila ma'am spoke about, how our legal education teaches
Jawad,
us.
It's the bandwidth in Jammu and Kashmir which is the problem. So,
Okay,
this is
okay.
Gita Mittal here. So,
Yes,
ma'am. Hello to all of you. Just to
hello,
tell
hello.
you, I'm here with you.
Good afternoon,
Thank you. Thank you. We are privileged to have you here, ma'am. Thank you.
My video and audio both are off for the same reasons,
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So, education teaches us. And also one more thing that I would like to add to based on our understanding of justice. So how do we understand justice? We understand justice as laws prescribing rights and wrongs and institutions which implement those laws, which are our courts. Now, it's not to say that laws and courts are not important. They are very important for us to discuss and prioritize values such as right to education, right to freedom, so on. But the problem is human conflict cannot always be understood on the basis of these definitions of right and wrong, on these binaries of right and wrong. So what defines conflict is actually human behavior that may not necessarily be the ideal behavior that is required by the law. Now, to understand this better, we need to see our early Indian jurisprudence, in which there are two concepts that we find. One is niti and the other is nyaya. Amartya Sen talks about these two concepts in his book, The Idea of Justice. So niti relates to justice as an institutionalized system, which is now symbolized by our laws and courts. Now, nyaya is concerned with what emerges from the application of the niti. how it affects people's lives in terms of how they're actually able to lead their lives. The difference between these two ideas is that while the first is based on binaries of right and wrong, good and bad behavior, the second recognizes the reality that problems do not always fit into these binaries. Conflict is because of how people understand life, how they approach it based on their own perceptions. So what has been happening is our legal education has only been based on the concept of niti, that is institutionalized justice, and not on the ground realities of how really people think and behave, how about the laws that define rights and wrongs, about the institutions and how according to these laws. We don't teach the more human aspect of conflict. So as a result, what we do is we train lawyers to become problem inflamers who treat every problem as a nail, to borrow a phrase that you used in one of our previous webinars, as a nail, and they use the hammer of law, thinking that they're solving the problem. But what actually happens is the conflict continues, sometimes out in the open, and many times under the surface, and it may erupt like a volcano sometime in the future. So what our legal education really needs to do is to create problem solvers who can understand the conflict and help people to resolve the conflict. Fortunately for us now, this recognition is gaining currency because and there is an understanding of the need for change. So our policymakers are realizing that there is a deficiency in our whole approach, and legal education is actually evolving to address this need. We all know that recently the Bar Council of India took a decision to include a process like mediation that has a more holistic approach to conflict resolution as part of the curriculum of law schools. So the way ahead is to change the paradigm of legal education and train lawyers as problem solvers, as people who can listen to the parties, the disputants, and understand the conflict and resolve it based on parties' needs, rather than resorting to some straitjacket formula that is laid down in law. So that is where I feel that the future of legal education is going, and we are fortunately in our own lifetime we are able to see these changes happening. And it is not just in India, but it's globally it's happening. And Singapore, we have Aloysius with us, and I have the good fortune of going to Singapore, and especially at the time of, along with all of you, at the time of the Singapore Convention. And we have seen the kind of remarkable progress that Singapore has been making in this arena. And especially when you go to judge these competitions, it's a whole new experience. I always end up learning much more than what I actually, what I give in the form of feedback to the participants. So that is where I see the future of legal education heading, JP. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Jawad, for your optimism about the future of education in India. Jonathan, now coming to you. You have conducted workshops in conflict resolution for over 5,000 law, business, and humanities students in the country. After doing your master's, you have explored mediation very early in your career as a lawyer. Now, do you see opportunities in pursuing mediation as an exclusive, successful, professional career option in preference to court litigation?
Thank you, Mr. Sengh. And thank you for all the organizers putting this together. I think this is a very esteemed panel, and it's an honor to be part of. So great question, Mr. Sengh. I think my whole trust with mediation began somewhere in 2015. But I think a lot of my career decisions took place in Kashmir. I had the opportunity to actually visit the University of Kashmir twice in 2017 and 18. And I interacted with over, I think, hundreds of students that time. And being in Kashmir, it was also a part for me to reflect, reflect on life. Just sitting by the Dal Lake, you can just sit there and you can actually reflect on your career options. And I think that was one of the time when I thought of taking mediation seriously in my career, because I realized that at that point of time, there wasn't really much happening, but I could see the future. I could see those small pockets of hope. And that was basically because of the different people I had the opportunity to meet. People like yourself, people like Ms. Laila, Jawad, of course, I've got to know of recently. I knew that there was a lot of work going on in the field of mediation. And a lot of time, I know a lot of students who come up to me and say that you have done so much for mediation, but I think I was one of the guys who went out there, a young lawyer who went out there and started wearing mediation on my sleeve. But I'm very well aware of the fact that there were so many before me who have been doing this for years now, and who've been doing it quietly, and who've been doing it, in a sense that, okay, they have, because you all also had your legal professions on the side, which was more important to you. But I think for me, it was very early on in my career that I realized that was not my cup of tea. And I think it stems from the fact that whenever I see conflict, I look at it from more of a problem-solving approach, right? I want to get down to solutions. I want to get down to helping people understand each other, look at a different perspective. And that's how I have been for most of I would say my 20s. And so therefore, I think when I was studying law, I was pretty lost in law school. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know why I was doing this. I enjoyed reading the barracks, and I enjoyed reading the law, and I enjoyed reading the commentaries, but I just couldn't see the practicality of it for some reason. But when I discovered mediation, I realized that you could actually bring this to life through a mediation scenario. And that changed for me. And that changed that approach gave me kind of the understanding that I can actually look for a career in mediation. So for me, it was that I took that decision quite early in my law career, I would say. And to your question about whether I see a future, absolutely. I think this is a time, as all of you have just said, the different changes that are coming up in India, with the BCI recognizing it now as a subject that should be taught compulsorily. The Supreme Court recently asking the government to look into mandatory mediation. There is a huge vibe for mediation in India. Absolutely. There are a lot of opportunities available. I think you and me were just discussing earlier on, now with the BCI making this a mandatory subject, there is a chance for those who don't want to get into practice to be good academics, to be good teachers. And on that note, Jawad and myself are already part of the first ever postgraduate course in India, which is being hosted by MNLU in Mumbai, right? And it's already a start. It's already that we're already saying that here is now a course where students can start looking into seriously. We could have an exclusive master's in mediation. So the opportunities are great. With regards to practice, yes, I think there's a lot of interest being generated. Experts and professionals from different organizations are taking their efforts to kind of go out there, spread the word, organize webinars. And I think that the more awareness we create, the more people are going to start calling us up to find out what mediation is. The curiosity grows. We got to make the population of India. We have 1.3 billion people. There is a lot of scope for mediation in India. We need to get them curious about mediation. They need to call us up and ask us, what is mediation? Tell us more. And more calls we get in, more mediations will come in. So I think it's all about creating awareness. And I think that was been my mission so far. It's going to continue. And I believe the scope is bright, for sure. Mr. Singh, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jonathan. One of the reasons why they say probably mediation would work in India is because we believe in relationships. And mediation wants to preserve relationships of people who are in conflict instead of separating them. So therefore, this being so, I'm sure, and then when we were in US, one of the professors said that Indian mediators are healers, while American mediators are settlers. They settle disputes, we heal disputes. That's the difference. And when you talked about your journey from Jammu and Kashmir, now I'll fail in my duty if I do not acknowledge the presence of Honorable the Chief Justice, Justice Gita Mittal, whose contribution to bring mediation on center stage in Jammu and Kashmir is far, is unparalleled. Today, you're already, lawyers from Jammu, Kashmir till Leh and Ladakh, so many have been trained because of the efforts put in by Honorable the Chief Justice. Even the judicial officers. And in fact, we'll be completing a training for almost all the judicial officers in Leh and Ladakh region. So therefore, her contribution in bringing mediation on the front page, I think will go down in history. And when you talk about mediation, anyways, an idea whose time has come and who's here to stay, I think the contribution would be remembered for a long time to come. Now, since we have the advantage of Mr. Aloysius Go with us, I'll like to take full advantage of his presence. Now, he's running SAGE, as I said, as a CEO. He's running several youth programs, successful youth programs in Singapore. And he's a hands-on specialist mediator as well as a trainer. So, Mr. Go, I would like your views on the topic of the day. Are there realistic career options today in mediation?
If you're happy to earn a lot less money than a lawyer, yes. No, so are there realistic job options? Well, I'm living it, right? So if I come out and say no, it'll be a bit too identical. There are great options. I'm happy that I'm honored that I was invited to join this webinar. I'm happy that it's being organized. I think this is a very different time from when I graduated, and my own professor, not to discourage me, but really out of great concern, just said, Aloysius, it's in your lifetime, it's just not going to happen. And I am happy to tell the young people today that in your lifetime, you can make it happen. It is not something which it's not something that's going to be handed on a plate to us, for sure. A career as a mediator. It is hard work. Even for me, right now, it's about learning every day, meeting people, reflecting, and being prepared to do a lot of things. I think as Jawad, as Jonathan, as Laila has said, for the sheer passion of it, you don't accept great financial reward, but God will always provide you with just enough to keep going. And I think sometimes that is, so JP, you've mentioned this before. Maybe for me, my good fortune is I had monastic preparation before I decided to do this. So very well aware of the difference between meditation and mediation, and very well aware of how they both work. And certainly, there's always that temptation, to look at my friends who graduated from law school with me, and they live in nice big houses, bigger houses, drive nicer cars, eat at better restaurants, and to watch all this and yet to feel no envy, because the one big difference that I have is that I go to work happy. My clients are happy with me. My colleagues are happy with me. And that is something which I have now learned money can't buy. And so for those who are exploring a career in mediation, I would say put your heart into it, and listen and learn from the good people around you. I am not based in India, but there are so many fantastic mediators, like the people on this panel that I have met. They have lucky for students in India, they have trod a path, whereas previously for them, and I know I speak for everyone here, Jonathan, Jawad, JP, yourself, Laila, you guys had to dash through the jungle. You created your own path, right? And but there's still so much jungle to clear. I hope for more young people to join. It is extremely exciting. I speak from not just from Singapore. Before I started SAGE, I was with the Singapore International Mediation Center, and that gave me that privilege of traveling around the world, to literally around the world: America, Europe, Japan, China, Australia. I was into India about 3 or 4 or 5 times a year, and the youth all around the world are so excited about mediation. The amount of talent pouring into mediation is phenomenal. Jawad has hinted the competition standards, they keep improving. I mean, we are judging one now, and you know, after a while, I just feel awkward trying to comment because they keep improving, and it spurs us to improve ourselves, and it just means that in future the practice of mediation is going to be extremely exciting. The sophistication of negotiation techniques is going to be mind-blowing, and there is so much in India that you guys know that we are just beginning to learn. I think Jawad knows this. Jonathan too, because you have been judging the competitions. Indian students are winning the competitions left, right, and center, be it in Europe or Australia or Japan or Singapore. You guys are embarrassing us and leaving us in your dust. So you know, there's just so much. There is no doubt at all that the youth in India today are going to be the leaders of the world tomorrow in mediation.
Mr. Sengh,
So,
can I
just say something, JP?
Yeah.
Aloysius, you will be the monk who bought a Ferrari.
I will be the monk who negotiated with you to buy me a Ferrari.
Mr. Singh, can I just come in here and just a few thoughts in 1 minute? I know I've already spoken, but
please go ahead.
Just to follow up on what Aloysius just said, I think young mediators today, young lawyers, young law students should, if they're looking at a career in mediation, they need to look into hard work and resilience. These are the two things that will be needed to go ahead. And I think just quick tips about what you should do if you want to start planning already is, first of all, do not take any opportunity for granted. I never did that, and that's why I've been able to have the backing and the community of all of you. I've had the privilege of knowing you because I did not take my opportunities for granted. So you should, even this webinar right now, try and stay connected with everyone. Try and network as much as you can. Read. There is so much of literature online. When I first started exploring mediation, I thought there was nothing. Every time I typed mediation, I found meditation. And that's because there wasn't, I had never thought about mediation before. Even your Google search gets used to you after some time. It does not give you meditation after like 1 year of searching mediation. So keep reading as much as you can. After reading, start writing. We want people to start writing. We want original, organic literature coming out of India. We want perspectives and opinions coming out of India. There is a lot of literature from the West. There is a lot of literature out there already for us to learn from, but it'll be so much better if we have our own literature coming up. And once you start reading, start writing, start your own blog post if you have to, start your own website if you need to. And people will start observing you. One of the reasons why I got a chance to come back and join camp and join Laila in Bangalore is because they were following me, I was following them, and we knew of each other's work. So stay in touch, let people know that you are interested in the field, and the field will come and find you. But you've got to put yourself out there and let everyone know that you are a mediation enthusiast, or else we will not be able to find you, because we are a huge country. So you got to stay relevant, you got to work hard, you got to stay resilient. So yeah, I think that's pretty much what I want to say. Thanks.
Thank you. You're right, Jonathan. Like, probably we need to indigenize, the process, because looking at our own conditions in India. And as both of you put it, as Aloysius also says, the future is bright. So far as our youngsters are concerned, I'm sure our future is bright. And when we talk of meditation, you see, when Aloysius talks of happiness, probably it is because of spiritual values, that he is imbibed, when he imbibed very early. So probably you need those spiritual values too, to work as peacemakers. So you need those values in you. Yeah, well, let's go back to Laila, ma'am. Madam Laila, you said, and let me say that every good adversarial lawyer in court need not be a good mediator, and vice versa. Are the mediation skills useful even outside the court system? And if you are not conducting the mediation proceedings, do you see a role for a lawyer in mediation?
Yes, JP. I want to take on from where Aloysius and Jonathan left, that there are challenges in the profession, but undoubtedly, it is the profession of the future. I have seen mediators with Ferraris in jurisdictions where mediation has caught on, like in the US. There are mediators who are making lots of money. We are just starting. And therefore, maybe right now it is a struggle, but I've been in this profession, and JP, you too, for the last maybe 10, and Jawad also for the last 10, 12 years. And we've seen how conversations have really progressed and more frequent. So today, mediation is a buzzword. And why we feel that this is something which we need to promote, because as Aloysius said, it really satisfies something within us. It is almost an evolutionary concept for man. The fact that a human being has a bigger prefrontal cortex in the brain is because his ability for compassion, empathy has increased. So when you do mediation, when you are able to do a good mediation, the immense level of satisfaction, the skills that you use in mediation is something which makes you really excited. And to take it to other fields, yes, I have used it in other fields with real good effect. For example, when I was still in the litigation, I did some public interest litigations, and I've always been successful in my public interest litigations because the method that I used was mediation. So I worked with the rights of persons with mental illness. This was in towards the end of late 2007-8. At that time, there was absolutely no awareness to the rights of persons with mental illness. Because of these skills, I was able to bring stakeholders together. This was a time when the stakeholders had the consumers, the persons and the caregivers of mentally ill people had no voice. But through collaborative methods, we were able to bring together the state mental health authority, the government, the caregivers, had extensive discussions and dialogues, and got the best results from court. We were able to have psychiatric care in all district hospitals, open Dharwad closed mental health institution and make it an open institution, rewrite the standards of mental health care, and even brought in law schools. And a caregiver and myself, we taught mental health law, which those days was almost a lunacy act. 1912 Lunacy Act was put into a new cover, and they called it the 1987 Mental Health Act, which is still as primitive. But through the law school, caregivers, and myself together, we drafted the first draft of the new mental health legislation, which came about in 2017, which is far more progressive. It came about only because of collaboration, bringing stakeholders together, and the courts, when that happened, were able to give us results which were really so appropriate. So I've used this. Even in my personal life, when my husband got caught in a litigation, I mediated that. And thank God, I was able to take away the stress and strain of litigation from him. And mind you, at that time, my father was a judge of the Supreme Court. When I called him and told him that my husband's business is in litigation, the first thing he said was, please resolve this. And I believe that many lawyers and judges in personal life, when there is litigation, they go in for a resolution. So I've used this amazingly not only in my mediation profession, but outside also, and with very good results. Thank you, JP. JP, you're muted.
That was so encouraging, Laila ma'am. And, looking at it, I mean, you feel sorry, yes. Things that you have gone through, but yes, you come out, through the force, through the, strength of mediation and the power it gives you. When I said, yes, why is Aloysius successful? Because of the spiritual strength that he has. And, when you talk of peace giving or peace givers, you need to have that inner strength first before you actually mediate. So hats off to you. Jawad, now that we talked about Bar Council of India's, proactive approach, now you are teaching the basics of mediation in the LLM, in mediation offered by Maharashtra National Law University. Now, what is your experience? And do you see an opportunity there?
Again, I'll put off my video, JP, just in case there's a problem with the audio. So, see, it's not just the MNLU. See, what's unique about the Maharashtra National Law University LLM course is that the students don't represent only one segment. Like usually we train, in our usual training programs, we have lawyers and judges. But in this, we had a cross-section of people, from different professions, from different age groups. And here's what was very interesting about it. Their enthusiasm, the kind of commitment they came with, the motivation, were equal across different ages, different professional, vocational backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds. I could just, it was palpable, the kind of enthusiasm, the excitement, and the commitment they brought to it. And they all sincerely believed that there is a need for change, as they felt that, the present systems are completely stretched out and strained to an extent where they felt that, they are failing to fulfill the hopes and aspirations of the people. They were there because they felt that they could make a change. So that is what I could see in their whole attitude towards that. And when I finished the paper on the basics of mediation, they were so enthused about it that I was told by the coordinators that they have formed groups amongst themselves and they continue to practice mediation the way it was told to them. Okay, it was a very pleasant and inspiring experience. And I found that same experience when I have done trainings in universities, not just in India, but also in UK. Because what I found is there is this recognition among our young future lawyers that they can be problem solvers. So they realize, that our present justice delivery system, notwithstanding its importance and also the fact that it is indispensable, is not the only way to meet the needs of access to justice. So they are totally abreast with the scientific advances that are made in understanding human behavior. They have good, they read up a lot. They come fully prepared to ask questions on not just the techniques of mediation, but also on, on neurosciences, on human behavioral aspects. The most important thing about this new generation is they are adept with technology. They are not dinosaurs like us who struggle with technology. They are adept with technology, and they recognize its potential in, obliterating the distances, making time differences completely irrelevant, providing easy access to justice by saving time and saving the money. And the whole thing is, the informality of these processes is what is appealing to them, because the informality actually dims the halos around the hierarchies, and it actually vaporizes the power structures. So the younger generation, I think, is much more ahead of us in embracing this new and emerging trends in dispute resolution, because they don't look at it as something that needs to be, see, in our times, before we really entered into mediation, we all know how we used to approach problems. If a client comes to us, the only thing we would do is take him to court. Okay, that was the only thing that we knew. Apart from maybe some ad hoc negotiations that we would do on behalf of our clients. And if a settlement comes out, it comes out. But today we have a highly refined process, a very scientific process, which ensures that, with the help of a third party neutral, we are able to move the parties forward from their positions to their interests and all those things. So the younger generation is really ready for it, is what I personally believe. And though at the moment, as Aloysius said, that it may not immediately, be an option through which you can buy a Ferrari, but in the long run, okay, definitely, I'm sure that we will have mediators like we have in the US who own Ferraris and Lamborghinis and all that. And I hope to see Aloysius also in a Ferrari very soon.
Thank you, Jawad. And Jawad, talking about access to justice, Honorable the Chief Justice is here. Let me tell you, Kashmir has some areas with a very difficult terrain where people find it difficult to approach the courts. And Honorable the Chief Justice has made even filing of a petition possible in a post office. And that petition is actually transmitted to the court, and ultimately the court takes it up. And so the next question to
in fact, if I may, sorry to interrupt you, JP,
yes.
Just to add one more thing. Recently, I was asked to give a lecture in the Hyderabad Hidayatullah National Law University on the mediation as a means of access to justice. So from the constitutional perspective, how mediation can fulfill that aspiration of access to justice.
Jawad, your voice is cracking.
See, the general perception is mediation is a very ad hoc process. Statutory rules also, they give the least priority to training in mediation. But when the students realize that mediation is a process which has as much gravitas and as much seriousness as, notwithstanding its informality, as litigation and arbitration, it was a kind of revelation for them. They said that we really didn't understand it. We never thought of it as fulfilling our constitutional aspiration. So sorry to add on to that. Thank you.
Jawad, taking it further, in fact, they say in US, 95% matters get resolved even before, they reach for trial. And only 5% matters land up for trial. Exactly. So the next question to Jawad, to Mr. Jonathan. You see, Jonathan, you have been very active on social media. You gave a TED talk last year to create awareness and encourage lawyers to follow the multi-door dispute resolution system approach. How important is it for lawyers to explore pre-litigation mediation in their practice, and what are the incentives?
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Yes, I think this is something I did last year where normally a TED Talk is something when you create something new, but my TED Talk was more about creating awareness about an already existing concept of the multi-door dispute resolution system. And I think for me, I try to use this analogy a lot. I look at the lawyer as, especially for someone who has never had a lawyer before, and he or she suddenly has a dispute. That person looks at the lawyer like how we look at a doctor when we have something that we can't understand what's happening with our bodies, right? Physically, we go up to a doctor and they're trying to get advice. So that the lawyer is the first point of contact. And if your doctor directly put you on the operation table and started operating you without giving you proper knowledge of what's going on with your body, you would have been shocked. You would have, first of all, not even taken his advice. You would have ran back home, right? So I think it's the lawyer's duty to kind of, play it out there, diagnose the case. There are a lot of good lawyers who do that. There are a lot of good lawyers who actually sit down with their clients and explain the process, tell them what's happening. But there are also lawyers who do not do that, and they do not even sometimes see their client's face. The file is lying on the table, and they've never seen the client after that. So it's important for the lawyer to sit down with the client, explain what the situation is, explain that you have different ways of approaching this to get justice. You can use it through conciliation, mediation, arbitration, or lok adalats. And if you do not want any of these third parties getting involved, you can actually even resolve it through negotiation. We do not need to get anyone else involved. We can do it ourselves. So I think it's the lawyer's duty to kind of introduce this to every client who comes up to her or him. And I think, and I'm aware I'm speaking to young lawyers now from Jammu and Kashmir, and I know I've interacted with a lot of them over there over the last 2 years. I know there is so much scope in Jammu and Kashmir right now. And,
We seem to have lost you, Jonathan. I think it's connectivity issues.
Yeah, Mr. Sengh, am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I'm going to keep my video off. So I think there's a lot of scope for dialogue in Kashmir. There's a lot of scope to present perspectives, present opinions, present identities. And these were the conversations that I had with young lawyers there. It's not about who's right and who's wrong. I think there is a lot of scope to create a nice, amicable environment to have those discussions. And you might be at polar opposites. And sometimes it's not about politics. It's about people. You might be at polar opposites. But I think this is a turn for young Kashmir lawyers to kind of now stand up and say, let's create an environment for dialogue. Let's listen to each other. Let's try and let the other person express themselves. And yeah, I know they're talking about Ferraris and commercial disputes, but there is so much of scope. I'm inspired by what Aloysius said. He goes back home every evening feeling satisfied. He goes back to work every day excited. And that's what you will feel as a young lawyer if you are looking at this as more than just a job. And I think young lawyers in Kashmir have this opportunity now to when a client reaches out to them, to sit down with them, look at different perspectives, give a chance for dialogue. Let's see if we can resolve this in a collaborative manner. And that's going to take a lot of effort, but there is a lot of chance to do that.
Jonathan, in fact, when you're talking about Ferraris, I always say, if you settle a matrimonial dispute, something which you don't like, and when the matter gets resolved and the father of the girl comes to touch your feet and you tell him, look, don't do this, you're my father's age, and he blesses you. Can there be any other, better happiness than that blessing of that old man?
Absolutely not.
So therefore, the money can never be a substitute. Aloysius, now that there is an audience question, now that we are here, let's use you here. The Guneet Sharma from the audience, Aloysius wants to know, mediator needs to be a neutral person. What does neutrality mean here?
Fantastic question, right? One of my favorite questions when I'm dealing with participants. Because when I learned mediation, I was always taught that neutrality and impartiality meant to not take sides. It was always defined in the negative, that I must have no biases, I must not be partial, I must have no feelings or sentiments about the parties or the positions that they have. But I have completely switched around in that stance. I now realize that neutrality means that I am equally close to both parties, right? That I put in that same amount of effort to understand both sides equally. I put in the same amount of effort that they feel the rapport that I have with them. I give you an example. One of the areas that I really specialize in is medical disputes, medical negligence disputes, right? And inevitably, when there's a med-neg dispute, there is either a patient or more often a family member because the patient has passed on or is unable to speak. And on the other side, there is a doctor and an insurer, completely commercial person and a medical specialist. Right? Sometimes the hospital is there, someone from management. And you need to, as a mediator, be able to demonstrate that level of empathy for the family member who might not be the most educated person. You also need to be equally close to the insurer. Don't assume that this person is all about money. Right? The insurer has a job and he actually cares enough to be present for the mediation. And the doctor is not somebody who went for the training in order to kill people. And so he's also very affected by the incident, and you as a mediator need to be very close to him too, to be able to really see his perspective. And that is neutrality. That ability to say, I am giving everybody the benefit of the doubt. I am listening to everybody very closely. And I am essentially the advocate for everyone. The only difference between me and the lawyer is that the lawyer only represents you, but I am actually at the service of every party to try and get what is a great outcome for everybody. So that is neutrality. And I if you give me 3 minutes, I just want to add to build on a few comments. Number one, the Ferrari was not my idea; it was Jawad. but I think all of you have been too kind to me. I didn't go into mediation because I had spiritual strength, and I don't think that has made me stay in this path. This spiritual strength. The truth is that, and I know, like I said, many of you personally. I had my own failings and my own struggles, and I know my own weaknesses. The difference between me and those of my classmates in law school who didn't choose mediation was that I was very discomforted by the tensions that I saw around me, in the community that I serve, the conflicts that are around, and this great sense throughout my legal education that everything that I was learning would end up actually fueling this tensions and gaps, and that was very unsatisfying for me. And that is unfortunately the nature of an adversarial common law system which Singapore and India shares. And I've had first-hand experience of closed ones suffering because of such an adversarial setting. And I simply said I can't bring myself to be part of this. There has to be a different way of resolving conflicts. And I do think that young lawyers in Kashmir and Jammu, in J&K, you guys know very well what I'm saying, because you have experienced conflict and the damage that arises from that. I'm not asking you to be mediators. I think like what Jonathan, Jawad, JP and Laila have said, all we are saying is whatever you do, be it becoming a lawyer, going onto the bench, use your legal education to create harmony. And mediation skills is just one avenue. Yeah.
JP, just 1 second. Just a minute. I just want to tell all of you that we have children from all over the country here. There are few from Jammu and Kashmir, but we are actually joined by young law students from across the country, So you're talking to children from across all over India. And while JP, you have been helping with trainings of judges and lawyers, let me tell you that we are also looking at, finalizing a program for peer mediation in schools for school children, So I think that's where mediation really needs to go. JP, children today are very concerned about the future, and they're very worried about what will happen to their law degrees, especially those who are in their final years because of COVID-19. So, I would like all of you to share what you would feel, what the whole, the conceptualization of this program has been around as to, whether mediation is a career option, whether it provides sufficient livelihood, whether it can be a livelihood option, and whether there is enough income in it for you to support yourself comfortably. Of course, ultimately going to buy Ferraris. Over to you, JP.
Thank you, Chief. In fact, my next question actually was on that. I have an audience question, attendees question from Prashant, saying choosing mediation as a standalone career option, how can it work in monetary terms? And there's another question from Sonia saying, do we need a separate and specific legislation on mediation for structured processes? In fact, my next question was to Laila ma'am, that after the Singapore Convention was signed by India last year, Laila ma'am, you have also been closely associated with drafting a domestic law for mediation in India as an expert appointed by the Supreme Court of India. Now, do you see mediation becoming a commonplace dispute resolution process in future? And what is your advice for young students and professionals for making mediation as a career option?
JP, to answer your question and to add to what the Chief Justice said, yes, we signed the Singapore Mediation Convention, and now we have to ratify it. The Singapore Convention is for commercial disputes, but commercial disputes don't happen in isolation. Mediation is a cultural change. It's a mindset change. The domestic processes have to be set in place for ratification. So when that happens, when the Singapore Convention is ratified by India, we will be putting in place many things to make mediation work in India. As part of that, you were also part of that committee. We worked on a draft which would then, of course, go on to the legislature and others. But we did work on a draft which is going to help promote mediation in India. There is also the concept of why not make mediation mandatory under subject heads. Many discussions are going on regarding that, so that a critical mass of satisfied users emerge. You cannot change culture without having a critical mass of satisfied users. How do you create that critical mass? You need mediators, you need the infrastructure. But mediators, again, going back to Chief Justice's point, can our students take this on as a career option? Until now, mediation was looked at as pro bono service. There was, just to be provided in the court annex programs. There was a reason for that. When India started court annex program as free mediations, it was to incentivize this concept. We were so adversarial in our mindset, it was difficult to induce parties to come in for mediation. Only if you promised a free mediation and a return of court fees would parties come in. But this is time bound. It is not the intention of our courts to keep litigants in the court system for eternity. That is not their intention. The courts want quick relief. Now, if that has to happen, we have to have mediation in every nook and corner of the community. Dialogue, conversation should become part of our culture. And people should earn a livelihood practicing this noble profession. We have to pay our bills. We have to, go on living. So for that, the court system, which is the repository of all cases, must encourage private mediation. There should be mediators in the community, residents' welfare associations. If the court system promotes this concept, ensuring standards, you cannot change culture unless there is a critical mass of satisfied users. How do we make that happen is something which all of us must sit together and really come out with a plan.
If I can just jump in a little bit, JP.
Yes. Please.
So I can raise everyone's hopes, right? And I think this is what Justice Gita Mittal was trying to get at. Highest earners, highest mediation fee earners in the US, the highest that I know of, earns US 200,000 a day.
Yeah.
For a case.
Yeah.
Good mediators, they are charging around US 15 to US 20,000 a day. In Singapore, a good mediator is probably charging about Singapore 10,000 to Singapore 15,000 a day, right? My rates are transparent. Sage mediation rates are transparent, and I just put it into the chat there. So that you guys can take a look. So this is how much commercial mediators are being paid in some of the international dispute resolution centers. I'm not saying this to you know, overly make expectations or to, but the truth is in the US and in Singapore, we at least when I was serving at the Singapore International Mediation Center, we were receiving cases from India for mediation. There are people who are prepared to pay those fees for good mediators. So is it viable as a career? Are you going to be, what kind of incomes are you going to earn? Those are the rates that are being charged. Yes, but again, as I tell everyone who I train, and I know Laila has been saying that as well, Jawad knows it too. Your first 50 to 100 cases, you are likely to be doing them for free, like any other thing. But when you have achieved a certain level of experience and competence, then you are going to be looking at between US 10,000 and upwards a day. If you invest that effort that Jonathan has told all of us that we need to invest in order to succeed. Yeah.
Aloysius, just to add to that, in fact, if you see now we have several statutes in India, like Consumer Courts Act, Commercial Courts Act, you know, which have now incorporated mediation as a pre-institution mediation, compulsory pre-institution mediation.
Yep.
So therefore, we need to have a pool of mediators. And in fact, there are law firms who are looking at having a section of ADR professionals in their law firms. Then there are private companies and, you know, public sector companies who are looking at again having a section in their HR department who deal with an ADR, because so that every dispute does not land up in court. So yes, there is a lot of scope. Things are looking up. But yes, that was, you answered that question. You know, one of the questions was from Aniket, why is mediation more successful in America than in India? You've already answered that. Probably we need to reach that stage. Yes, we will reach that stage someday. Yes, and so
Maybe I just sorry.
Yes, come on, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add to that.
Yes,
CAMP is a private mediation institution. We charge, and parties are not reluctant to pay for mediation services. However, the number of cases is still a challenge. And I believe it's only a matter of time. We are very young. We're only 5 years old. Soon, with legislation, with courts supporting us, with mandatory mediation, it will happen. But those who enter the profession now, as Jonathan also will tell you, must have a stomach for path breaking. You're changing this, the system, you're path breaking. Have a stomach for it. Commitment, passion, very important. Otherwise, you cannot sustain. Yeah.
Jawad, a quick word from you. We are coming to the end of this session. Now, having mentioned those statutes and what I mentioned to you about various law firms and companies looking at having mediation sections or ADR sections. Now, do you see this as an opportunity for development of mediation in India?
Most definitely, JP. And just to add to what Laila ma'am and others said about Aloysius also said, see, one of the factors that has been, when we started talking about mediation, as you all know, about 15 years back, people used to laugh at us, right? And it was regarded as a tree-hugging concept. It was, they used to treat us like the tree huggers, environmentalists and all that, because they used to dismiss us. They said, what are you joking about? But today, see, in our Tamil Nadu Mediation Center, we used to struggle to get people to enroll for training programs. And today we have a more than 500 waiting list of people waiting to be trained. So you see how the transformation has taken place. But one thing we need to keep in mind in India, why the progress is slow. One of the factors is that we are a high context society. So culturally, we believe in hierarchies, okay? And we look forward to somebody deciding for us. And we are very happy when somebody takes a decision. We are a country where we still have matrimonial websites where parents choose whom I should marry, whom I should not marry. So in the context of a society like this, it becomes a very scary thing for people to decide for themselves. So when you ask them to resolve their own dispute, you're giving them with a responsibility that culturally they're not used to. Okay, so they're scared. Now that mindset is changing, I feel, with our younger generation. And coming back to your question about organizations having this, it's absolutely necessary. The time has come for that. And in fact, for example, I'm a panel advocate for the Airports Authority of India, Chennai Airport. Now they have a dispute resolution board where any dispute that comes with their project contractors are first referred to the board. And if the resolution doesn't happen over there, it goes to arbitration. So earlier what used to happen was everything used to be referred to arbitration without going through this process. But what I have been recommending to them is, I said, your dispute resolution board officials need to be trained in mediation. Because without that training, they will not be really able to find solutions, because we are finding that in spite of having the dispute resolution board, almost all cases are coming to arbitration again. So it's absolutely necessary because, essentially what disputes can harm the organization, because there might be two kinds of disputes. One would be the internal disputes between the staff, the employees. There might be dissatisfaction. There might be, conflict between members of the same organization. So that would be one arena of conflict that needs to be resolved internally. And the other would be where the organizations have dispute intersay on maybe based on contractual disputes, commercial disputes. And for both these things, they need some internal mechanism which can help them to decide what is the best way to resolve the dispute. Even if those people are not really trained in mediation, at least they can decide that, okay, this is a matter that can be, like how Section 89 demands from the court, that the court should see whether there's an element of settlement in a dispute, and according to that, decide on what would be the best form of ADR to refer to. So those, the internal structures that they have, the departments that they may have to handle the disputes should be equipped with that knowledge as to what would be the best way, even if they are not trained in mediation, but they should be able to recognize a dispute for what it is and choose the correct method of resolving the dispute. So it would help to bring down the burden on the courts to a substantial extent. It will help the organizations also, because apart from the economic factors, two things that pull down the organizations are the litigation costs that they incur when a dispute spirals out of control. So, in my opinion, I think it's absolutely time now, and there are many organizations that are looking into it. But I feel there is not enough traction. I think there needs to be more traction into it. And in all probability, it might come with a change of mindset, as Laila ma'am also pointed out. That mindset not just from the, as Amartya Sen described, the argumentative Indian, we love to fight, But apart from that, there's also the mindset change that needs to come is that we should be mature enough to take responsibility for taking decisions on our own, instead of being scared of shouldering that responsibility.
And Jawad, thank you so much. I think this is where Honorable the Chief Justice, when she talked about taking it to schools, when we talked about catching them young, probably that would work for, the youngsters taking their own decisions, when it starts from school.
In fact, I wanted to point out that also. Somehow in my, excitement to speak, I forgot about that. In fact, that is something which is needed. I think we all should sit together and we should formulate a course where we need to, bring about this peer mediation concept in schools, so that from a very young age, children develop that ability to, resolve their own problems and, take that responsibility of taking important decisions.
Laila, you were saying something?
Yes, I want to, I beg to differ from Jawad a little bit on the high context culture. Having experienced mediation in the Language Mediation Center as a coordinator there, the kind of participation our Indian litigants did in mediation, they would really, once they got that authority to take their own decision, I found them very participative and quick about taking decisions. In fact, a German lawyer who came to do internship with the BMC watched our Indian litigants, and she comes from Germany, which is a low context culture. She said, "Oh my God, the way the Indians participate in mediation is so superior to what anybody else that she has seen." So this is, maybe I'm wrong, I haven't done deep research on it, but my experience is that an Indian does very well in mediation.
Thank you, Laila. Last few questions, before I call upon Honorable the Chief Justice for the last word. As Justice Call said in the morning, Judge always has the last word. Mr. Aloysius Go, Aprameya Manthena, I hope I have pronounced her name, his name correctly. What role does any specific discipline, domain knowledge play in field of mediation? And the last question from Bela Jyoti, how would mediation work as a post-retirement career option?
So I have actually replied both of them in the chat. To the later question, I said that it is an even better career pre-retirement than post-retirement. Right? If you're going to do it, start young. To the question of domain knowledge, I think that definitely, just like your common sense and logic, if you have some level of, some degree of domain knowledge relevant to the dispute that is sent to you, that is generally helpful, right? Generally helpful. But the helpfulness of that domain knowledge is conditioned on your skill as a mediator. If you know how to control that inquisitive side of yourself and that evaluative side of yourself, then the domain knowledge can be really useful. And we are because mediation is growing in popularity, we are seeing more and more complicated disputes being sent for mediation, and definitely I found that having some level of domain knowledge helps. That's why I've done so many medical disputes now that people are prepared to trust me when I listen to them, that I understand the medical jargon. I run small businesses, I've worked in the government, so when government officials send disputes to me, they also know that I understand the internal workings of the government and the thinking. It helps, but what is more important is a strong foundation in mediation competence. So there's a hierarchy to the skills. Yeah.
And what about post-retirement? When do you feel there's a career after retirement? People can, even seniors, I'm sure, can work as seniors with their experience in life.
It is
Trained
that anybody can take up as long as you can speak, as long as you can communicate. This morning, my 4-year-old crashed my webinar, and so you can have 4. If you can negotiate with your daddy and get your way all the time, you can mediate. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Rajeev ji, do think we have reached our time?
Yes, Mr. Sengh, we don't have any further questions in our chat box and the Q&A box. So we can go to conclusion of this program. Yes, Mr. Sengh, you are requesting Honorable the Chief Justice for having few words in the last.
Yes, we were waiting for Honorable the Chief Justice.
Yes, I'm having a lot of difficulty since I moved into my house in Jammu. So I'm short of everything. I have very little charge on this. Huh? Okay, so I just want to say thank you to Laila, Aloysius, Jonathan, Jawad, and JP, all wonderful friends. I don't think I've met Jawad and Jonathan before this, but I've heard so much about you for the wonderful work that all of you are doing in mediation and for inspiring the young participants and my several judges in Jammu and Kashmir. You know, mediation is a way of life, and everybody here on this panel has said so, and I heartily endorse that. I look forward to joining the mediation family full time, even, you know, and hopefully I will have time for that soon. But it's been a very wonderful session with all of you sharing experiences. And I hope many of you who have joined this program will feel truly inspired and think seriously about adopting mediation as a career. You know, you will bring in much peace, not only to the litigants, but you will find a lot of peace with yourself in the while guiding people through the process, and it brings in a lot of healing, genuine healing, you know, into the community, into your society, into the families. You know, I even while undertaking adjudication, I found that guiding people towards mediators and teaching them, telling them about mediation, enabling them to take decisions, to take the disputes to the mediation center in the Delhi High Court was very, very satisfying. And the tremendous amount of satisfaction that a mediation agreement brings about. You see, no amount of judgment, good, well written, can give you. So, thank you very much to this wonderful panel, and always a pleasure to hear you and see you. And Aloysius, thank you for taking this up. I was hoping that Vishwa Sadashivam would also be able to join us, but he said he had a commitment and he would try to join. But I don't think he has been here. And we will look forward to troubling you again and again. JP and Aloysius have been coming to Jammu and Kashmir and training judges and lawyers here. And we still have to get the mediation set up as a robust movement here, JP. And with your help, even after I am gone from Jammu and Kashmir, in my formal appointment as a Chief Justice, but I hope to continue with the engagement with the lawyers and the judges, and hopefully we will be able to introduce mediation as the same with robust mechanism and with the same energy that it has in Tamil Nadu, Goa, Bangalore, and Delhi, and Singapore, of course. So thank you very much. A very, very good evening to all of you. And God bless you all. Keep you all in good health wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Same to you, Chief. Thank you for the wonderful job that you're doing, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. It is all your efforts, ma'am, that after your joining this High Court, a revolution has been brought in the process of mediation. And it is the team, Mr. JP Singh and all the team, they have brought this revolution. Thank you very much. So all the panelists from the High Court of Jammu and Kashmir and from Jammu and Kashmir Judicial Academy, let me thank you all for your wonderful deliberations, and Mr. JP Singh for your wonderful moderation of the program and putting very useful inputs. And special thanks to Mr. Aloysius Gau. In last minute, he was requested and he has joined us. Thank you very much. And among the participants, we had law students, a few judicial officers, and law researchers. So thank you all. So with this, we come to conclusion of the program. So thank you very much.
Rajeev sir, Mr.
Yes.
Aloysius Go was the man who actually invented the parachute. He likes parachuting in.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.